Let me start by saying that Tyler Perry was addicted to heroin. We were friends in college and sorry. Let me start by saying that Peter Dinklage was addicted to heroin. Really? Let me start by saying that Kevin Hart was addicted to heroin. Am I getting close?
No, you're fine.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me say that Kevin Smith was addicted to huge jorts.
We were friends in college and continued to be after I graduated. Notice I said, I. He dropped out after 2 years, barely cutting it. After I moved out of the dorms into a small apartment, I didn't see Tyler much. We would talk online every now and then. AIM was king in pre-Facebook years. There was a period where he wasn't online for about 5 weeks straight. I wasn't worried. He was a pretty notorious flake and drug addict. So I assumed he just stopped caring. Then one night I saw him log on. Before I could initiate a conversation, he sent me a message. David, man, we need to talk. Shut the fuck up.
What was that?
That was the sound of the message. He opened up his computer and he heard that, and he knew that Kevin Hart was calling. Okay. That was when he told me about the No End House. I got that name because no one had ever reached the final exit. The rules are pretty simple and cliche. Reach the final room of the building and you win $500. There were 9 rooms in all. The rooms were located outside the city, roughly 4 miles from my house. Apparently, Peter Dinklage had tried and failed. He was a heroin and knows what the fuck addict. What?
What was it?
A heroin and who knows what the fuck addict? That doesn't sound good at all. Anyways,
Is that
so
a new
I
drug?
figured.
Is it kind of like a BOFA?
So I figured drugs got the best of him and wigged out at a paper ghost or something. He told me it would be too much for anyone, that it was unnatural. I didn't believe him. I told him I would go and check it out the next night, and no matter how hard he tried to convince me otherwise, $500 sounded too good to be true. I had to go. I set out the following night. When I arrived, I immediately noticed something strange about the building. Have you ever seen or read something that shouldn't be scary, but for some reason a chill crawls up on your spine? I walked towards the building, and the feeling of uneasiness only intensified as I opened the front door. My heart slowed, and I let a relieved sigh leave me as I entered. Well, fuck, I read that terribly. The room looked like a normal hotel lobby, decorated for Halloween. A sign was posted in the place of a worker. It read, "No running in the lobby." Also,
Mr. Mosby.
room 1 this way, 8 more follow. Reach the end and you win. I chuckled, and I ran in the
You
hallway
mean the
anyways.
Chaos Emeralds?
Chuckle.
I chuckled, hit, and made my way to the first door. First area was almost laughable. The decor resembled the Halloween aisle of a Kmart, complete with sheep,
Wait, hold on.
ghosts,
Do
and
Tev...
animatronic zombies.
Wait, do Kmart have Halloween sections?
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Do they? I haven't been to Kmart for a while.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever been to Kmart in their entire life.
Kmart's pretty scary.
It's scary enough on its own, and you think you're gonna come into an actual haunted house? That's a little too much. Okay. Anyways, these animatronic zombies gave a static growl when you passed by. In quotations, just like that one place, you know, at the Best Buy, where you pass the Call of Duty section and you just start hearing gunshots from either side of your ears. At the far end was an exit. It was the only door besides the one I entered through. I brushed through the fake spider webs and headed to the second room. Also, let me say, who's running this? And how did he just walked in, saw a sign, no one was there. It's just like,
That's
it
the
probably
point,
looks like an abandoned building.
Jacob,
Like,
that's the
how are
point.
people supposed to find out about this, huh?
Swear to God, you're ruining my
I was
story time.
I was greeted by fog as I opened the door.
Vape was greeted by vape smoke.
I just said opened the room to door 2. I might be fucking retarded, guys. The room definitely upped the ante in terms of technology.
You say
Not only was there a fog machine, but a bat hung from the ceiling and it flew in a circle.
Oh my god.
Scary. They seem to have a Halloween soundtrack. The one that you would find at a 99-cent store on loop somewhere in the room. I didn't see a stereo, but I guess there must have been a PA system. I stepped over a few toy rats that wheeled around and walked with a puffed chest to the next area. No one's around, you don't have to show off. I reached for the doorknob. My heart sank to my knees. I did not want to open that door. A feeling of dread hit me so hard I could barely even think. Logic overtook me, and after a few terrified moments, I shook it off and entered the next room. Room 3 is where things began to
The music actually
change.
just got really fitting for what's going on.
Why'd you have to?
Why'd you have to fucking comment on it,
You ruined the
Brandon?
flow.
You ruined the flow. That's like someone making a
I'm
movie
sorry,
and then they get a
Well,
good
it's
shot,
working
so they
so
put
well.
text up on the screen that says, "This is probably the best shot of the movie," and I'm really
I'm sorry
proud of
that
it.
this is.
It works really well with how stuff.
You better turn that song off before we get copyrighted.
I don't.
Room 3 is where things began to change. On the surface, it looked like a normal room. And it was! There was a chair in the middle of the wood-paneled floor. A single lamp in the corner did a poor job of lighting the area, casting a few shadows across the floor and walls. That was the problem. Shadows, plural. With the exception of the chairs, there were others. I had barely walked in the door and I was already terrified. It was at that moment that I knew something wasn't right. I didn't even think as I automatically tried to open the door I came through. It was locked from the other side. That set me off. Was someone locking the doors as I progressed? There was no way. I would have heard them. Was it a mechanical lock that set automatically? Maybe. I was too scared to really think. I turned back to the room and the shadows were gone. The chair's shadow remained, but the others were gone. I slowly began to walk. I used to hallucinate when I was a kid. I wrote off the shadows as a figment of my imagination. I began to feel better as I made it through the hallway. As I made it to the halfway point of the room, I looked down as I took my steps, and that's when I saw it. Also, let me just say, how large are these rooms? You went through the last ones pretty quick, dude. And you know, when you're spooked, you just run through things, so you know.
Once
No.
I figured it
Anyways, or didn't see it. My shadow wasn't there. I must have been a vampire. I didn't have time to screen a movie in the amphitheater because I ran as fast as I could to the other door and flung myself in without thinking into the room beyond. The fourth room was possibly the most disturbing. As I closed the door, all light seemed to be sucked out. And put into the previous room. I stood there, surrounded by darkness, not able to move. I'm not terrified of the dark, never have been, but I was absolutely terrified. All sight had left me. I held my hand in front of my face, and if I didn't know what I was doing, I would have never been able to tell. Darkness doesn't describe it. I couldn't hear anything. It was dead silence. When you're in a soundproof room, you can still hear yourself breathing. You can still hear yourself being alive. I couldn't. I began to stumble forwards after a few moments. My rapidly beating heart was the only thing I could feel. There was no door in sight. Wasn't even sure there was one the first time. The silence was then broken by a low hum. I felt something behind me. I spun around wildly, but I could barely even see my nose. I knew it was there, though. His nose or the thing behind him? I knew my nose was there, though. I just knew it.
Hadn't been stolen yet.
Regardless of how dark it was, I knew my nose was there. The hum grew louder, closer. It seemed to surround me. But I knew whatever was causing the noise that was in front of me, inching closer. I took a step back. I had never felt that kind of fear. I couldn't really describe true fear. I wasn't even scared I was going to die. I was scared of what the alternative was. I was afraid that what this thing had in store for me. Then the lights flashed for a second and I saw it. Nothing. Nothing I saw. And I know... What? I saw nothing, and I know I saw nothing there. The room was again plunged into darkness, and the hum became a wild screech. I screamed in protest. I couldn't hear this goddamn sound for another minute. I ran backwards, away from the noise, and fumbled for the door handle. I turned and fell into room 5. Also, let me say, didn't it say the lights flashed and he saw it, but he's not going to describe it at all?
No, he said that there was nothing there.
But it says, then the lights flashed for a second and I saw it.
That he
Nothing.
saw nothing.
It's fucking stupid. Anyways, before I describe room 5, you have to understand something. I'm not a drug addict. I have no history of drug abuse or any sort of psychosis short of the childhood hallucinations I mentioned earlier. And those were only when I was really tired or just waking up. I entered the no-end house with a clear head. After falling in from the previous room, my view of room 5 was from the back. looking up at the ceiling. What I saw didn't scare me, it simply surprised me. Trees had grown in the room and towered above my head. The ceiling in this room were taller than the others, which made me think that I was in the center of the house. I got up off the floor, dusted myself off, and took a look around. It was definitely the biggest room of them all. I couldn't even see the door from where I was. Various bush and trees must have blocked my line of sight with the exit. Up to this point, I figured the rooms were going to get scarier, but this was a paradise compared to the last room. I also assumed whatever in room 4 stayed back there. I was incredibly wrong. Nothing followed me. As I made my way deeper into the room, I began to hear what one would hear if they were in a forest. Chirping bugs. Chirping bugs?
Bugs
I don't think bugs
Crickets
chirp.
I don't think bugs
I mean-
chirp.
I guess you could say crickets chirp, but
Yeah, you just kind of say like the sound of like crickets. Like
Wait,
birds
what?
chirping, that sounds fine, but bugs
Bugs?
chirping?
they do more like buzzing.
They do more just like screeching,
Bugs just scream like people.
like a human, like a very manly man. Anyways, and the occasional flap of birds seemed to be my only company in this room. That was the thing that bothered me the most. I heard the bugs and other animals, but didn't see them. I began to wonder how big this house was. From the outside, when I first walked up to it, it looked like a regular house. It was definitely on the bigger side, but this was almost a full forest sapling in here. A fully grown forest sapling. The canopy covered my view of the ceiling, but I assumed it was still there, however high it was. I couldn't see any walls either. The only thing I knew I was still inside was the floor matched the other rooms, the standard dark wood paneling. I kept walking, hoped that the next tree I passed would reveal the door. After a few moments of walking, I felt a mosquito fly onto my arm. I shook it off and kept going. A second later, I felt about 10 more land on my skin in different places. I felt them crawl up and down my arms and legs, and a few made their way across my face. I flailed wildly to get them all off, but they just kept crawling. I looked down and let out a muffled scream. One more whimper. To be honest, I didn't see a single bug. Not one bug was on me, but I could feel them crawl. I heard them fly by my face and sting my skin, but I couldn't see a single one. I dropped to the ground and began to roll wildly. I was desperate. I hated bugs, especially ones I couldn't see or touch. But these bugs could touch me, and they were everywhere. I began to crawl. I had no idea where I was going. The entrance was nowhere in sight, and I still hadn't even seen the exit. So I just crawled, my skin wriggling with the presence of those phantom bugs. After what seemed like hours.
One game that came out last year,
What?
the Phantom Bug.
Oh yeah.
I actually don't want to read this anymore.
You gotta finish it,
You haven't
Jacob.
finished it.
It's so long.
Jacob. Put heart into it,
Yeah,
okay?
you're not putting heart into it.
Can we at least switch off who reads it so it's not just all me? Like, there's a variation in it.
Brandon, go ahead.
I'm not like. Here's.
You can edit in the picture.
Bad mic.
Okay.
And I'm tired.
So you're allowed to use the I'm tired excuse, but I'm not?
Okay, what was the last part you ended on?
No.
Oh, Jake, was that the hum? Are you nothing, Jake? He grabbed the
It's
doorknob,
like
right?
up to this point, I figured no, that wasn't it. Uh, it was only a few feet away when I heard it.
Humpy.
Wait, what was the last one?
He just did the. He took a few shaky steps to the door. So you're on a. It was only a few feet away when I heard it.
Trying to find it.
Control left.
To the left, to the left.
Okay, here we go.
Control F to the left.
To the left, to the left.
Shaky. Okay, there we go. It was only a few feet away when I heard it, the low hum from before. It was coming from the next room and it was deeper. I could almost feel it inside my body, like when you stand next to an amp at a concert. The feeling of the bugs on me lessened as the hum grew louder. As I placed my hand on the doorknob, the bugs were completely gone, but I couldn't bring myself to turn that knob. I knew if I let go, the bugs would return, and there's no way I could make it back to room 4. I just stood there, my head pressed against the door marked 6, and my hand shakily grasping the knob. The hum was so loud I couldn't even hear myself pretend to think. There was nothing I could do but move on. Room 6 was next, and room 6 was hell. I closed the door behind me, my eyes held shut and my ears ringing. The hum was surrounding me. As the door clicked into place, the hum was gone. I opened my eyes in surprise. The door I had shut was gone. It was just a wall now. I looked around in shock. The room was identical to room 3, the same chair and lamp, but with the correct amount of shadows this time. The only real difference was that there was no exit door, and the one I came through was gone. As I said before, I had no previous issues in terms of mental instability, but at that moment I fell into what I know now was insanity. I didn't scream, I didn't make a sound. At first I scratched softly. The wall was a tough... What was that? The wall was tough, but
The ghost.
But I knew the wall was there somewhere. I just knew it was. I scratched at the door where the doorknob was. I clawed at the wall frantically with both nails, my nails being filed down to the skid against the wood. I fell silently to my knees. The only sound in the room was the incessant scratching against the wall. I knew it was there. The door was there. I knew it was just there. I knew it was just there. It was right there. I knew it. It was right there. It was on the wall. I knew if I could just get past this wall. Are you alright? I jumped off the ground and spun in one motion. I leaned against the wall behind me, and what I saw was that spoke to me. To this day I ever regret turning around. There was a little girl. She was wearing a soft white dress that went down to her ankles. She had long blonde hair to the middle of her back and white skin and blue eyes. She was the most frightening thing I've ever seen, and nothing in my life will ever be as unnerving as what I saw in her. While looking at her, I saw something else. When she stood, I saw what looked like a man's body, only larger and hairier. He was naked from head to toe, but his head was not human. His toes were hooves. It wasn't the devil, but at that moment it might have as well been. The form had the head of a ram and the snout of a wolf. It was horrifying, and it was synonymous with the little girl in front of me. They were the same form. I can't really describe it, but I saw them at the same time. They shared the same spot in that room, but it was like looking at two separate dimensions. When I saw the girl, I saw the form. When I saw the form, I saw the girl. I couldn't speak. I could barely even see. My mind was revolting against what it was attempting to process. I'd been scared before in my life, but I've never been more scared from what was trapped in the 4th room, but that was before room 6. I just stood there staring at whatever it was that spoke to me. There was no exit. I was trapped there with it, and it spoke again. David, you should have listened. When it spoke, I heard the words of a little girl, but the other form spoke through my mind in a voice I won't attempt to describe. There was no other sound. The voice just kept repeating that sentence over and over in my mind, and I agreed. I didn't know what to do. I was slipping into madness, yet couldn't take my eyes what was off in front of me. I dropped to the floor. I thought I had passed out, but the room wouldn't let me. I just wanted it to end. I was on my side, my eyes wide open, and the form staring down at me. Scurrying across the floor in front of me was one of the battery-powered rats from the second room. Guys, I'm kind of scared. I don't like battery-powered rats. Are you
Well,
guys
Brendan-
okay if I keep going?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. As long as there's no cobwebs.
Or battery-powered
I'm
rats?
really scared of cobwebs.
Cobwebs spook me hard, dude.
Cobwebs.
Jake, we're not talking about what makes us hard. We're talking about what scares us.
I'm sorry, Chase.
Dude,
I
what if
didn't-
you got hard looking at cobwebs? Like you walk into an attic.
That'd be pretty sick.
The
To be
house-
honest, I'm not paying that much attention to this story, but I am watching this video which opens up with 3 cats wearing Letterman jackets walking into a club.
I have a thought. Should we make this a 2-part series? Just continue the second part, because we're about at half. I think we should continue it tomorrow.
I don't know, Brandon.